and welcome to V-Kei the Podcast, hosted by me, JK Collectives. Make sure to like and subscribe, as well as comment. Today, we are tackling one of the pioneers of visual kei. We are talking about Luna C. For today, I got my information from visualkeifandom.com, vk.gy, and lunac.jp. I just have to preface this. I am slightly ashamed in my journey of visual kei because I don't understand how I was not listening to Luna C before now. Like just their musicality and their captivating atmosphere, but just listening to their music, there is no wonder that they are pioneers. But that's exactly what this podcast is about. Not only is it maybe an introduction for you, it's also an introduction for me, in finding new bands to explore, the new, the old, the coming up, whatever it might be. This is the whole purpose and a way for me to be able to deep dive into some of these bands. And that's why I started this podcast. So, since Luna C is one of the pioneering groups of visual kei, that means that they have a long history. And from the information that I gathered on this group, I mean, their history is pretty consistent. There's not a whole lot of back and forth of switching of band members. This is not a podcast to talk about drama, but honestly, when looking up Luna C, not a whole lot of drama was in the research. So with that and their long history, let's begin. All right, Luna C, as we know it today, is a 5-piece rock band that formed in the late 1980s, specifically 1989 to be exact. The band consists of Ryuichi, who's the vocalist, Sugizo, who's a guitar and violinist, Inoran, who's a guitarist, and Jay, who's a bassist, and Shinya, who is the drummer. And as the taping of this podcast, we know that Shinya has passed away as of February 17th, 2026 from colon cancer and brain tumor. With this information, a lot of the heartfelt, heartwarming information the band put out, you could tell that Shinya obviously was a huge driving force for the band's musicality. Luna C did host a public memorial service on March 8th to honor Shinya, and they still continue to do so with some of the upcoming concerts, to provide a space for fans to continue to showcase their love for Shinya. But with that, let's go into their history. The band started off as Luna C, which spelling Lunacy, for about 1 year from 1989 to 1990. It was formed by Inuran and Jay in high school. Of course, they've had other members part of the Luna C band before their breakout as the band that we know it today. But most of those members, because this was a high school band, basically graduated from high school and went on with their own lives. So Inuran and Jay, wanting to continue their band Luna C, invited Shinya and Sugizo to become official members. At some point during their early years, Sugizo also played as a support for the band. Shinya made it so that Sugizo was invited to also become a member when he was invited, and then Ryuichi joined officially, replacing the original singer from the band. They officially debuted May 6, 1989 as Luna C, Lunacy. They were a small band, but pretty successful in the local venues in Kanagawa. Their self-titled first demo had about 100 copies, and they were given out at their concerts. And then when they made their second demo tape titled Shade, they created 1,000 copies and sold them at their concerts. The first time that they were finally leaving their home base was on April 3rd by a group called Aion. Shinya was a roadie for them in the past. So they got that opportunity, and that allowed them to really kind of start branching out. They officially did change their name to Luna C as we know it today, which is Lunasea. On November 24th at their sold-out one-man live And due to that performance, they caught the eye of Matsumoto Hideto from X Japan and signed with the indie label Ecstasy Records by Yoshiki of X Japan. I do find it really interesting when it comes to the visual kei community of artists, where it's like, really, it is one of those situations where everyone knows everyone, and I think that's a really cool sort of, not even just concept, but just a really cool idea that all the musicians really sort of respect each other and see where talent is and give that credit when due. I think Yoshiki having this indie label, as we know, kind of really opened up the world of visual kei, and of course we will eventually do a episode about X Japan and their history. But they were signed. Luna Sea was signed from 1990 to 1992 under the label Ecstasy Records by Yoshiki. And again, they just continued to go up. They just continued to rise. Really, Ecstasy Records gave them the opportunity to join bigger events and tours that they were able, like, to join bigger events and allowed them to tour on a national level. The first time that they had a national tour was when they were part of the lineup of Ecstasy Records Nuclear Fusion Tour that sold out, that basically sold out in Tokyo, Yokohama, Nagoya, Kyoto, and Osaka. At that time, they also went on 2 national one-man tours on their own. And at the end of 1991, they signed with a major label, MCA Victor. MCA Victor is kind of a major label under Universal Music. So really, they, not only was Luna Sea obviously part of this, but like even groups like Patti LaBelle, like artists like Patti LaBelle, Nirvana, they released their music through MCA Victor in Japan. So really, we're talking about some big wigs in this time. At the time of 1991, at the end of 1991, when they signed with their major label, major record label, they also opened their official fan club, Slave. That fan club is still open today. So, of course, joining a major record label really took them to the top. 1992 to 1996 was their peak moment. They really rose to fame between these 4 years. Signing to a major label, they released They released their single Image, which ranked number 9 on the Oricon chart. And at this point, their venues kept getting bigger and bigger, and they were selling out. Like, that's the ideal way for a musician to want to be getting their music out there. In 1994, 1994 was a really impressive year for them because they released their single Rosier, and that ranked number 3 on the Oricon charts in July. And then after that, they were able to go on tour with Soft Ballet and Buck Tick. Then in September of 1994, they released their single True Blue, which was their first single to hit number 1 on the Oricon charts. Really, from there, again, they just kept going up, because October they released their 4th album, Mother, which is one that I personally like from them. They sold over 700,000 copies. And over the course of 4 concerts for that particular album, they sold 40,000 tickets. So again, keeping it national, keeping it in Japan. They're touring. And that's one thing that I've started to notice a lot. Well, not even started to notice. I've always known about the Japanese music scene. And I'm sure a lot of us visual kei and just Japanese music lovers in general have noticed is like Japan's music stays within Japan, which I think is a really cool concept, but I think it's due to their really dedicated fan base of people loving to listen to the music that these bands are producing, these artists are producing. And so there's no need for them to have that global audience. Of course, as we know, they do have a global audience. All of the artists, all of the bands have global audiences. And of course, the only way, and I remember even for me, was like, okay, I wanted to buy CDs by these Japanese artists. I knew I had to go to a website that would actually ship to where I am, and it was always a whole to do. It was always expensive, but like that's the only way that we could get the music at the time. But like really, I want to even say around 2018, really for like about 10 years, they finally put a lot of their music on streaming and opened it to a much bigger global audience. And while there are qualms with streaming, and I do have problems with streaming, I do like that it has created a way for us to connect to the music on a simpler level. Um, Even though like with streaming, like right, you don't own the music, but at least it's like, okay, I can get this music for now and then work my way on getting a CD, something permanent for myself to have. So having this music on streaming is like honestly one of the best things, because otherwise it's just going to stay in Japan. Like we'll have YouTube would have music videos and such, and obviously some fans would post some of their songs online for us to enjoy, but really giving back to that band is us being able to stream or buy their CDs offline, or online. But anyways, going on that trajectory, let's move on. On December 23rd, they had their first Tokyo Dome concert, and they sold out all 56,000 tickets in less than 24 hours. And of course, we're talking about 1994, so ticketing websites weren't as much of the mainstream, right? So they that was big. 20 in less than 24 hours, they sold out 56,000 tickets, 56,000 seats. At this point in their career, they, again, like I said, 1992 to 1996 was their peak moment. They were really getting there. And so 1994 was their year that they really broke through, and they became even more popular than their own mentors. As I was listening to their music and their albums and sort of their top hits, it makes sense because we'll get into the genre of what Lunacy, where Lunacy falls in the visual K drama genre, the visual K genre. But while their music is rock, and sometimes it goes heavier, and sometimes there's the screaming, and sometimes there's the chaos, there is something inherently peaceful about their music. And again, and there's also something sort of muted about the way that they present themselves. And again, this goes into the genre that they technically fall under. But I think because of just the strong musicality and dedication and the softness of their rock without being so in your face, even though it was in your face, but not in your face. I think people who listen to Lunacy might understand what I'm saying, but it's like the softness and the musicality and the way that they just all sound together really created something that could market to the masses. Like it wasn't such a niche situation where it's like only people who listen to visual K would like them. I think from a standpoint of Japan, like their music was extremely palatable, while still being unique and genuine to themselves. So definitely like they didn't sell out from their music, but like they had the right formula that created it to be such, not only with obviously being on a major record label, but just their tone and what they've created, I think really allowed them to become the mainstream band that they are. Like really become a face of visual K. Again, I kind of like hit myself over the head when I think of the fact that I didn't listen to them, and I get it. I think the reason why I did not jump out of my way to go say, oh, I want to listen to Lunacy is because I like flashy, I like loud, I like dramatic, I like colorful. And that definitely is something that comes with like Oshada K and Kira Kira K and some of the others that I'll get into. And Lunacy is not necessarily that, and it's a little more muted, and I think that's why I kind of ignored them. But like I am regretting that, because their music is fantastic, and I really enjoyed listening to them, and obviously will continue to be listening to them in the future. But taking us back to sort of the end of 1996, when they were in their peak career, of their career, they did decide to go on a hiatus. And that hiatus allowed for the members to sort of do their own thing, figure out what they wanted to experiment. This allowed for Ryuichi to have his own debut solo album, get into acting, and publish his own books. Sugizo, which, fun enough, I think the first time that I was introduced to him was the side project that Yoshiki created, The Last Rock Stars. And I even went to see The Last Rock Stars on tour, and gosh, the music was so good. It was phenomenal. But of course, we only know that they've released only the one single. All the rest of the songs is kind of a you had to be there. I'm kind of hoping at some point they will release maybe a concert version where we can hear the songs that they produced. But again, that's a whole other episode of this podcast. But Sugizo, obviously, around the time of 1997 to 1998, he ended up really going a more experimental route. He created his own record label called Cross, and then again released his own solo albums, and this was just a way for him to explore more. Then we had Jay, Shinya, and Orion, and they too at that same time released music. Then they made their comeback in 1998, where they began producing more songs, and they were still just as popular as their break allowed them to be. And they even released a song called Breathe, which was released on the Japanese edition soundtrack for Mulan. This takes us into November 8th, 2000. They announced one more single, and then with that, they also announced their disbandment after the 2-day Tokyo Dome concert, which of course I could probably imagine was heartbreaking. But thankfully we are in the year 2026, so we know that they reunited back in 2007. At the time of their when they reunited, they celebrated their 10-year anniversary from their original hiatus at the end of 1996. And their 15-year debut from being a part of a major record label. Y'all, those tickets, we think getting tickets are hard now, or maybe even the past 3 years are hard to get. No, these tickets, man, they sold out in 5 minutes. This was no joke. People were not playing. They wanted to see Luna C. So you can tell just from the tickets selling out in 5 minutes, they were still as popular as they were back in 1994. Like, for real, that was, I mean, we're talking some people's peak adulthood, peak childhood, whatever it may be. They were determined as of 2007 that they were going to get tickets, and that those tickets sold out in 5 minutes, to the point where they had to air a live broadcast on the public broadcasting channel NHK of that concert, because just so many people wanted to see them. And then we know that they really officially resumed activity as of 2010, where they continued to release music, and have reunions and go on national tours. So 2010, they're back. Yes, they are. Still selling out shows, still having the fan base that they have, still having the fan club Slave exist. Like, they're still, even to today, they're still doing all the things. So with that information right now, what we know is that they have released 12 full-length albums, 21 singles, and 7 compilation albums. They also have done other side quests when it comes to releases, like they have released books, instrumental albums, VHS, DVDs, and so much more. So you cannot deny that they have a lot of content. They really capitalized. They really gave to their fans. They were doing all the things. And you know what's really good about a band like this is that they continue to evolve with the times. They're not stuck in their ways. They're not like, we're only going to play the same songs, which again, I think fans would be totally okay with if they did just their songs from the 90s. But they continue to evolve. They continue to stretch themselves. They continue to see what more they could do. And I think that's really cool from a band that started in 1989 and still has such a presence today in 2026. So that leads us to our next sort of segment of what genre do they fall under? What subgenre of visual kei do they fall under? Of course, we know they are visual kei. we will not deny that they are visual kei. From my research, it seems like they fall in about two categories. They fall into the Kuro Fukuke. From the website vk.gy, Kuro Fukuke was active roughly between 1990 to 1994. Their biggest attribute is they wore mostly black clothing and typically played a form of beat rock modified with influences from heavy metal and other genres. I do think this definitely is where Lunacy fits well, because again, they're listening to their albums, they definitely take the influences from heavy metal. Some songs have some screaming, some things are thrash rock, some things, like, it really is a mixture of genres into one thing, while also being very melodic. Very melodic, very, again, going back to that concept in that word of soft. It's really interesting with the way that they mixed their music and the way that they produced their music. They also fall under kotei, because again, with a lot of subgenres, a lot of them have like defined year dates. So this is bands that roughly are in the 1996 and later, where we're going with the dark, fantastical worldview themes, where they wear dark, over-the-top costumes. And again, I wouldn't even say that Lunacy went... They had their moment of a little bit of over-the-topness when it came to their outfits, but as for a lot of visual kei in their 90s and early 2000s, the visuals was just an add-on. Really, it was the music that they were creating. And with kotei, and going back to this definition, vk.gy, they play trashy rock with influence by Japanese metal, Kuro Fukuke, and Nagoya kei, usually with an emphasis on screaming and unusual vocals. And again, that's why I'm like, they really fall under Kuro Fukuke, because they don't necessarily have the screaming. Like, screaming does occur in some of the songs, definitely have some unusual vocals that they play around with. And again, that kind of makes them the pioneer of these two genres, but also just visual kei in general, because they encompass so much of what bands are sort of doing now. Looking into what their current schedules have been, Lunacy's most recent concert was a rescheduled concert that was held on March 12th, 2026 in Ariake Arena, and it was their Lunatic Xmas 2025 concert. That did get rescheduled from back in December. At that concert, they did also have a place for fans to memorialize Shinya. The other thing that they have announced is that Lunacy will be kicking off a tour in 2026. It is the Lunacy Tour 2026 Unending Journey Forever on May 29th, and they will be performing, they will have a total of 33 performances in 22 cities across Japan. One thing that I find very interesting, and again, this kind of goes back to, like, Japanese musicians really do tend to stay in Japan. I do believe they've had a world tour, but they don't do a lot of outside of Japan work, which I think is really fascinating. And I really do sort of applaud Japan being able to, like, not needing to break the global market. But of course, they have broken the global market, because how else are people talking about visual kei or about Lunacy and about these bands? Because we fans, we know it. We'll do the diving. We'll find a way to listen to this music. We'll find a way to see them live. That's just kind of how scrappy we are when things don't come to our own countries, and that's totally fine. And so if you want to see Lunacy in 2026, they will be performing about 33 times this year, starting on May 29th. And again, I'm not entirely sure how complicated tickets have gotten now, but oftentimes you do need to have that Japanese phone number. So if you can figure out a way where you can get texts and get your tickets online and then make your way to Japan to go see them, please, I'm like, go do so. Now we'll move on to my song recommendation corner. I am listing all 5 songs that I recommend from Luna C. I will say, like, if you have a friend who's borderline thinking about getting into Visual K or loves rock music but has never heard of Visual K, I think Luna C is that group that you want to get them to know. For sure, like I said, there's just something about them that I really appreciated when I was listening that gave me, as an, even though it was powerful rock, it sure is, it's rock through and through, not denying the genre they're in. Um, it was just something that was extremely soothing about listening to their music. Um, so, with that, we're talking about their song recommendation corner. Again, these are not the top 5 songs. These are just 5 songs that I recommend. Absolutely listen to their whole discography because it's fantastic. Songs that I recommend is the song of Cosmos, Higher and Higher. That song came out in 2019 and it was an opening for Mobile Gundam at that time. Then we have Rosier. This came from the Mother album. Mother album was released in 1994. Like I said, there's just something about the Mother album that I really truly enjoy. And as we know, 1994 was really, really there. They shot up to stardom. People selling out concerts left and right. Truly no joke. Then I have Love Song from their Love Song single. Love Song single came out in the 2000s. That one is a nice slow jam, a nice 7-minute and 9-second song. And it's really interesting the way, one, I love a nice slow jam, just to, it breaks everything in an album, as I've stated in the past. But this one, it's weird. When I was listening to it, and it guess it just depends on the speakers that you're listening to, which is the fun thing of mixing and mastering music. And they really played with some higher frequencies happening towards the end of the song, to the point where I wasn't sure if it was my speakers, if I was enjoying it, if I was having a moment. I'm not sure what it was, but I think, like I said, kind of going back to their experimental ways, it definitely played with some musical elements I wasn't expecting. So I really do like the song Love Song. And it is your typical slow jam, but it has elements in it that kind of surprise you. But again, it might just be because of the speakers I was listening to. I'm kind of a little bit of a music buff. I have a degree in audio technology. So I would love to know a little bit more behind some background on that song, Love Song, as it was produced. And the last song that I would like to recommend, because I think I've recommended 4 so far, is, nope, I think I only recommended 3. Sorry. The next song I would like to recommend is Mother from Mother, their 1994 album, and then Believe from their Believe single, and that came out in 2005. I think this is a band that just really has a little bit for everybody. This is not a group that you need to necessarily be picky with. You can, I think anyone can find a song that they vibe with, they jam with. So I absolutely recommend listening to Luna C if you haven't, or keep listening to them, because boy oh boy, there's a lot to decipher, there's a lot to listen to. They have such an interesting and really straightforward career path, that this is not a group, again, where members were flying in and out, or there were issues, or there were, well, again, we don't know anything behind the scenes, and I'm not going to question whatever happens behind the scenes. But again, from a public facing view, it's just, this is a straightforward group, and they've been together till the end, and they keep working together. And you can tell, just even from how they handled Shinya's passing, that every member of this group was an integral part of Luna C. And they really took, I can tell, like, from the music and how heartwarming the music is, it's that you could really tell that this was a group that just enjoyed playing music. And I think, like I said, everyone, there's a reason why they are a major pioneer of Visual K, and that they're still going, and that they're still having such intense tours and people are still willing to see them, it's because just them alone is extraordinary to listen to. But thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Check out the playlist link below. I will be linking the band's social media accounts to here so you can hear any more updates that they might have. Do not forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and let me know what band I should do next. Bye!